Thanks for coming, everybody. Once again, my name is Steve Scher, City Planning Department. I've got a basic outline of what we want to cover tonight. Not a very lengthy presentation, but like the mayor said, I think the main thing here that we want to garner tonight is your support, your advocacy. We want to build that core group of people interested in the dog park. And before jumping into the slides, how many people here are dog owners? So quite a few. Is anybody not? That might be a better question. One, okay. Yeah. So that seems to be the national trend is with dog ownership. I mean, we've seen statistics as high as 55% nationwide. But so why don't we just jump into the presentation here? So again, once again, the whole idea behind this meeting tonight is to build the team, the core of who's interested. If you have other neighbors, other people that you know are interested in a dog park in the city, talk to your neighbors, talk to your elected officials, talk to people that you know around the block. And there's a sheet going around here, which I think is also important. You can sign up to be part of a working group or get additional feedback on the dog park discussions as we go. But it's going to be possibly a lengthy process. Again, we want to build that team before we jump into determining locations and what kind of amenities we want in the dog parks and how much it's going to cost and how much we need to fundraise and then ultimately towards implementation. So it's all going to start up here, and that's where we're at tonight. We want to strengthen and build the team. And there's also going to be opposition, as we all know. There's been a past attempt, which we'll get into a little bit, in the city along Root River Parkway by the county to develop a dog park. And like any project, though, whether it's a street project, a redevelopment project, there's typically always somebody, a group of people opposed, and there's also those that are advocating for it. So we need all the voices to be heard, and yours is very important. This is that form that's in the back of the room. If we need more of them, just let me know. But it's helpful to have some information and understand who's involved. If you want to be part of an email list, or if you're interested in serving in a working group, if you're interested in donating to a project, again, this is all going to be very crucial to getting things started. The mayor had alluded to the county, and at this time they're not pursuing any dog parks in West Allis. They have a criteria for at least a minimum of 10 acres. That's about the size of like Curry Park, if you're familiar with that location. And these are the existing dog parks in the Milwaukee County area. These up here on the very top, the four up on top, Bayview, Curry, Granville, and Rover West, are within roughly about a 15-minute or so drive from West Allis. And the rest of them are probably within the 20, 25-minute range from that point. The county parks have a permit system. The dogs, of course, have to be licensed to state law. They have proof of their vaccinations, tag. And then there's also a permit fee for the county's perspective. They have an annual fee of about $25 for the pay-to-play type of facility. And then for additional dogs, if you have more than one dog, it's $5 additional. If you're a non-resident of the county, it's a little bit more. These are the Milwaukee County parks, just to sort of help distinguish the location of county parks within the West Allis, city of West Allis. Greenfield Park, obviously over here on the west, the Root River Parkway, Rainbow Park, La Follette Park, McCarty Park, and then part of the Kinnickinnick River Parkway and Honey Creek Parkway over here. This is that one area over here on the southwest side of the city where the county had talked about creating a dog park in the past. It was roughly about a 20-acre grassy, sort of wetland, grassy area south of Oklahoma Avenue and north of Morgan Avenue. It is an existing county parkway. They were not talking about creating any off-street parking. They were just focusing on street parking on the Root River Parkway itself. And it is in proximity to residential, like many areas in West Allis. We're a fully built out community, and that's one of the challenges. We don't have acres and acres of undeveloped land to pretty much just, you know, use willy-nilly. So we're really focused on not only redevelopment, but with redevelopment, people do want amenities too, parks and other types of common things such as dog parks and skate parks and, you know, bicycle facilities. So this is one of those areas where the county took a look at it. It didn't go very far. A lot of the neighbors were opposed, but moving on. In terms of nationally, some of the information, there's sort of a wide spectrum of information out there. On the web you can search, but you know, dog ownership is definitely on the rise in the United States. Roughly between 80 and 90 million dog owners out there with pets in the house. Constitutes about 48% of America's households. Spending is up as well, 60 billion annually. I think that's in terms of pets overall. And then millennials, of course, you know, are now the primary pet owning demographic, and baby boomers are close behind. So, yeah. Locally in West Allis, there's about 2,000, between 17 and 2,000 annually in terms of dog licenses. There's a $12 fee for a spayed or neutered dog, and it's $24 for an unaltered dog. So, and then in terms of the number of households we have in the city, about just shy of 30,000 households, and an estimate based on some of those national stats and multipliers, guessing about an estimate of about 10,000, maybe up as high as 12,000 dogs within the city. It's hard to, you know, as far as demographics go, I mean, that's my best guess for our city. We're a population of 60,000 people within the city, and it's unfortunately this part is cut off here, but this is the number of persons per square mile in West Allis. Again, we're a fully built out urban city with a population of 60,000 people and a persons per square mile of about 5,300 persons per square mile. And the average age is, median age, I should say, is about 37.9 years of age, which is a little bit lower than some of our counterparts in Tosa and Greenfield. This is a map from our Parks and Recreation Plan that shows a distribution of population throughout the city. You know, obviously, the more urban, you know, the older, more traditional parts of the city, where the city first started here, is the most dense, and then the annexation area further west, which happened in 1954, is a little bit more suburban in style, less dense, of course. So, but we'll get into a Park Service map in a little bit, but this whole area, as you see, we have a number of parks throughout the city, both county and city parks, and majority of our parks cover the most dense portions of the population. The private sector is also getting involved too. The city, again, is wanting to redevelop some of its older industrial areas and looking at new ways of doing that. The Market at 6 Points development across the street from the farmers market on the old pressed steel tank site, and then also south of National Avenue, is changing. And we're looking at new neighborhood around that area, and the developers are realizing that not all, you know, a lot of their tenants have dogs or want to have dogs. And often it's pretty hard to rent someplace that accepts dogs. So these new developments are accommodating small dog exercise areas on their developments as part of their redevelopment scheme, recognizing the trend in terms of dog ownership. This is the Element 84 project on 84th and Greenfield, just near the Hampton Inn Suites Hotel. Some general dog park attributes that are pretty common across the spectrum throughout the nation and locally here, but generally are all open to the public. There's a pay-to-play permit-based system, whether it's daily or annual. There's also a fenced perimeter with double gating, sanitation, garbage, recycle bins, established hours of use. The county, for instance, is 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And I'm not sure of how many people are out there in the dark with their dogs, but you know, I suppose it could happen, but it's probably fairly infrequent. Small dog and large dog separations, that's another big thing that's quite common in some of the larger dog parks. Also, in terms of the responsibility of pet owners, you know, thou shalt be a responsible pet owner, and you know, a license is required. It's a state law. So, for instance, with any dog park, the rules that would be established would definitely require your dog to be licensed. current on its vaccinations in terms of rabies and such, the dogs would have to wear that tag as well. The owners have to be present with the dog. Owner or guardian of the dog would have to be present with the animal. And then, obviously the feces, the poop has to get picked up, and that's the owner's responsibility. It's not, it wouldn't fall on the city. It's really our responsibility as pet owners to pick that up. So, and then the number of pets is also at times limited. Within the county context, Milwaukee County, about 3 dogs is the max that you can have at any one time within a dog park under one owner or guardian. And the dog has to be under voice control. Popular times to visit, and this is just from county type of Google data, but on average 45 minutes is pretty typical. And obviously, as one would think, the weekdays are less used, whereas more so in the evening hours, around 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. And then the weekend is really where it ramps up, and you'll see a lot more popularity of people and their dogs there visiting and staying for a period of time. The cost and funding, in terms of this is just one example, but the numbers here in terms of the quantities can all change. But these numbers here are just sort of ballpark estimates. In terms of fencing around the park, in this one situation, we're suggesting about 1,000 feet of fencing at 50 feet, $50 per lineal foot. Signage can be up to $2,000. Picnic benches, trash receptacles and recycle stations, waste stations. A little contingency thrown in there. Ballpark estimate about $60,000. And maybe I estimated in the high side, but you don't want to estimate low either. So, yes? Again, it's just a ballpark. Let's not, tonight I know these are just concepts at this point, and as we sharpen our pencils and dive into the specific location, the type of furniture and equipment, by all means, I'm sure some of these costs might change. And again, I'm just kind of stating these very generally. Costly, definitely. So yeah, So just take it for what it's worth, but it's just a general cost estimate at this point. If parking lots are part of the equation, that's going to increase the cost as well. Paved parking lot is roughly about $2,000, per stall. 5 stalls, $10,000. So cost estimate to maintain the site, depending on the size again, a smaller site might be something like a $5,000 annually. A larger site, perhaps like a 5-acre site, would be something probably more along the area of $10,000 when you factor in the number of times a week to cut it, maintain it. Then again, these prices are very general as well. With the crowdsourcing we hope to do and gain advocates, there could be days where the public comes and helps maintain these parks as like a friends group. And that brings costs down, of course. So funding, again, sort of finding the sponsors, finding the people, the interested parties, whether it's vets, groomers, pet owners, crowdsourcing and funding, different organizations throughout the community and the region. Those are all very key. There's also grants available. There's a few here, some of which are national grants, a little bit harder to achieve, but there's also more local types of grants too that maybe would sort of bring us to the top of the list, hopefully. And obviously with the city budget, there's capital improvement budgeting as well, but you're getting sort of ranked into the number of capital improvement projects within the city, and the committee then prioritizes which ones rise to the top first, because there's only so much money to go around. So this is really where the key is really up on top here. And then this is icing on the cake if we can get grants. But this is really what we want to focus on as part of the core group. So now let's just get into, yes, ma'am.
I just wondered what happens when after a year or so, none of this funding comes in like you expected. Where does the money come from then to keep this park going?
Well, it's all going to be, if there's no interest, in terms of no money coming in, I guess it's up to the city's powers that be at that point in time if they're interested in budgeting for it. There certainly does seem to be quite a bit of people interested in a dog park in the city, and so right. So yeah, there's obviously going to be permit fees and so on, but before you even get the park built or implemented, what we're going to be looking at is who is interested in trying to raise as much money as possible. It's going to take time. It's not going to be an overnight fix by any means. So let's just take a look at some of the sites. This is the park service area within the city. Apologize for the colors on the screen here, but we're going to start with the mini parks. These are the very small little pocket parks within the city. Probably way too small for a dog exercise area. We're not ruling them out, of course, but I mean they're very small. Typically on a corner like 60th and National or Railroad Park on 82nd and National. And then branching out from there, you have a larger coverage area of the neighborhood parks, including Clents Park, Honey Creek Park, Copperwood, Veterans Park. And then the larger, even still coverage of the larger community parks, such as Liberty Heights and Reservoir Park. The county parks take up the rest of the area here. Further out, there is definitely, the Park and Open Space Plan definitely did identify a shortage of, the neighborhood style of parks, though, on the southwest, and basically west side of the city. Yes?
What's the shaded purple and the shaded green?
So this shade of purple here, that's actually covered up by the green, so it's kind of darker purple, but this is the mini parks, like your 60th and National, the little pocket parks, yeah. The green is the neighborhood parks, and these outlines here, the purple outlines, are the community parks. Yep. And it's just going to show again, county parks, and then the distribution of city parks. I didn't put the mini parks up there; they're too small to see. And then there's some other open spaces. They may not be parks, but they could be open spaces, such as DPW land on 116th and Morgan. It's an island off the southwest coast of West Allis, but it is technically West Allis. And then we have behind the police department, for example, and then just west of Reservoir Park on a We Energies corridor, between the expressway and the Little League fields, is a swath of land that we're going to be taking a look at. And then also here on 76 and Hicks is another thought. So let's just start with Honey Creek Park. So 84th Street, National Avenue, the city's water tower, historical society, and we're looking at, initially it could be perhaps about a half an acre site is identified in red here between the water tower and 84th Street. We'd stay out of the cemetery. There's also other areas also under the city land here, identified in blue, just south of a walking path. And that's about 3/4 of an acre. And then if we were to discuss with the school district, there could actually be on school grounds owned by the school district, perhaps even another half acre. In total, over an acre of land. Yes, sir.
School districts, per state law, required open space, ever be putting on that?
Perhaps, yeah. We've got to have that discussion. Yeah. We're just looking. We're spitballing here. Yeah. But nice attributes of this park: an existing park, centrally located in the city, parking available. I mean, that parking is shared with the school district. There are some teachers that, at Franklin here that utilize this, and it's in proximity. Being centrally located, you have proximity to residential, which, can be a blessing or a curse depending on how you look at it. So. Yes.
What's the open space behind that?
What,
On the other side.
over here? Oh, yeah.
What is that?
Yeah, this is a Franklin school right here. So Franklin's on 86th Street, between 85th and 86th Street. This is the Beecher, off the map here, right on the bottom. If we go down a little further, it'd be Beecher Street. So you got Franklin School, and they've got a ball field here. Actually, two ball fields. There's a more formal one here and a more informal one up over here. There's a walking path that connects to Honey Creek Park. We're focusing on and the property lines are really hard to see on here. I apologize for that, but we're focusing on the Honey Creek area here, which would be on city land, both here and in blue and here in red. And then this was just kind of another thought that, hey, there's some area here where I think the Central football team may have played or practiced in the past. I'm not sure if they're really using that but it's something we want to talk to them about. Yes?
The 3 parcels combined?
Yep, 3 parcels combined, you're looking at 1 3/4 acres approximately, yeah. Total, that's assuming everything, the school land and the city land. If we're looking at just city land, stuff that's under the city's control, it'd be a total of an acre. I'm sorry, a little over an acre, yeah. Well, that's the county. So there's a distinction between Milwaukee County parks and the city of West Allis parks. So the county is saying, you know, we've got to have at least 10 acres to even consider doing a dog park anywhere. No, that's just their current strategy given budgets and resources. The other area is the west of Reservoir Park, near 98th, just south of Greenfield, 90th and Lapham, essentially. The city's recently created some new equipment here within the park. The Little League fields are in this area. There's talk about soccer fields being flipped and perhaps moved behind the police department, and the Little League is interested in developing another ball field for the larger kids in this area here. As part of that whole thinking, though, we're looking at, and we've been talking with We Energies just informally about what's the possibility of maybe utilizing some of this land, maybe 5 acres or so underneath the power lines. You know, American Tower Company has power lines overhead. We Energies owns the land. They're willing to offer a license agreement to the city, be no cost to the city, and we would just obviously have to call Digger's Hotline and make all the proper safeguards to provide access to the site and make sure that wherever fences were going in, you're not digging into something electrical. So that's another thought. 76th and Hicks, just south of there's National Avenue here, 76th Street, and then Hicks Street is here. Backs up to the Union Pacific Railroad. And this is an 1.5 acre site. It's privately owned currently. It used to be a former commercial laundry, I think Steiner Corporation. And they've done some extensive cleanup of that site, and we're evaluating their thought of perhaps turning it over to the city. And you know, we would take a look at that, but so we're throwing it out there for consideration.
Sorry, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
They've done cleanup on it?
Yeah, they have, privately.
And they're willing to turn it over to the city?
Correct, yes.
At a price, right?
Minimal, like $1. Perhaps. That's what we're fluid here. Work with me, yeah. Yeah, yeah. Sure, okay, all right. All right, all right. Copperwood Park is another area. This is on north end of the city, north city limits. 76th Street being the main street that runs through it. You have the Hank Aaron State Trail here, and this is the city of Milwaukee up on top. This being the extent of north limit of the city. State Fair Park, the racetrack, is right here. It is residential to the south. And there's 2 sides to Copperwood Park. You've got an east and you've got a west. Both are a little over 1 acre in size. So we're putting those out for consideration. Some of the challenges, I guess, with some of these sites too are, you know, depending on the attraction. Parking could be more of a concern on some sites versus others. In many cases, there's only street parking. You know, for these parks right now, all we have are, you know, to service these parks is street parking along Pierce or 77th or so on. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I don't have a map or concept for it, but it's definitely crossed our minds as, you know, what's the state's long-term vision? You know, perhaps for some of those areas where, you know, if racing should leave, what do we do with that 75 or 80 acres of land? Yeah. The Roosevelt School site, well, former Roosevelt School, now we've got a whole health clinic on this property. It's an older aerial, so Roosevelt School is still here. The new clinic is over here, and they occupy about 2 acres of this site with their building and parking lot. The school district essentially transferred this property, conveyed this property to the city within the past few months, and it's about 1 acre in size. There's going to be some new fencing and some new playground equipment going in here as part of, with the city's acquiring this site. But we're throwing it out there for an idea of perhaps maybe part of the site could be used for an off-leash dog park. It's, again, not fairly central in terms of where it's located, right off the Hank Aaron State Trail, within a neighborhood nearby, across the street, in many cases to a neighborhood, and it backs up to commercial use. There's no parking lot or anything shown on here, but street parking, I guess, services this area right now. And those are going to be the decisions we need to make, depending on the use, the location. Is a parking lot warranted? Is it not? Is street parking good enough? And a lot of people are going to get involved as we hone in on different sites, and we'll listen. So.
Would you agree or disagree that a dog park in West Allis, the first dog park in West Allis, is going to be a pocket park, neighborhood park, or is it going to be more of a community-sized park?
That's a good question. I don't know yet. Thought about it two different ways. I guess initially, when the county was thinking about things on the southwest side of town, that was a fairly sizable area, close to 20 acres, potentially in full, which would accommodate, it'd meet their criteria, and it was a sizable kind of a regional draw, potentially. There's a different way of thinking about it, too, is if we look at maybe a few different locations, maybe smaller parks to service more of the immediate neighborhood area versus the big, let the county do the big regional thing, and we'll maybe focus on just the immediate neighborhood. Yeah. So
So the city is open to multiple parks potentially, because we might have to be small.
yeah, I mean, depending on how things go, I mean, there could be more than one park, but yeah, perhaps it's more of a smaller neighborhood scale. Yeah.
Here's Bayview's picture.
Oh yeah, I've got a picture of that. I can go back to that if you like. I got Bayview and I got Rover West on Google Street View if you want to see that. Yes.
It's the kind of place you ought to find.
Yeah. Well, the county's got. Sure. I mean, that's the county parks saying that we feel that we're operating at the max we can right now with the resources that are available, and they're just focusing on what they have, and they're not planning on anything in the near future for West Allis. You could certainly contact your county supervisors, the county parks, and that's part of this whole part of this whole team approach, advocacy and just yeah. 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 Yep.
We have two potential developments programs there. I mean, the challenge in finding the perfect location is that dog parks don't pay taxes, and putting jobs and tax base on their will, and that obviously eases the tax burden on all of us. So that's kind of, that's a decision we need to hear from you on as well, is, if we're going to set aside some land that we could put taxable property on and create jobs, or have an amenity, and that's why some of the energy plans and existing parklands are so prominent in the discussion.
Yeah. Well, I kind of think that you have to, whether people want to admit it or not, you kind of have to look at some of the Milwaukee smaller businesses that are out there and offer that as like, I don't know about you, but whenever you go to Curry Dog Park, I've been to Curry Dog Park, and I've got two kids sitting next to me, and it's like, gotta go to the bathroom, it's October, it's cold, so they gotta go to the bathroom. Well, there's no bathroom facility in there.
Mm-hmm.
And you would have to really, the city would have to pay a lot of money to maintain it, and say, you have some kind of smaller business, one of the coffee brews or whatever, that's some sort of location that's open, maybe not late hours, but,
Yeah. Well, there's a reason we have a porta potty at the skate park.
yeah.
Another concept area is Root River Parkway, just north of Oklahoma, international, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, it's along the county parkway. This actually is a composition of both Milwaukee Metropolitan Sewage District land, as well as a city property. And we've looked at this site as, it's potentially up to 5 acres of land. Being considered is, anywhere between 2 and 5 acres of land. This is one area here that would represent about 2.5 acres, consisting of 2 MMSD lots and a city property. The nearest residential is along Waukesha Road, as well as a little bit north on River Parkway. Parking.
I'm sorry, the MSD land is not contained within that.
Yeah, yeah.
Right?
There's there's a little bit. It goes a little further. So you got MMSD outside of the blue area and on top, but then there's.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's kind of hard to see.
potentially
Yeah.
that could be considerably larger than 2 to 5 acres.
Correct. Right. Yeah. I mean, if you were to move these lines all the way out to the edge of the property limits, it'd be about 5 acres. I guess we're just sort of we're going in the middle, I guess, of the outliers. Yeah. Yeah.
Can't see very well.
They had offered to either lease or sell it to us, and again, just a very probably minimal cost to the city. I guess they're looking at, they're out there mowing it, during the growing months, and there used to be homes on these properties, and because it's in a floodplain area, those homes would routinely flood and elevate the insurance and all that kind of thing. So they stepped in and bought those properties, and there's a deed restriction on these properties that says you can't build another house. It's going to be it's going to be green. So, but they're willing to entertain the idea of us using the park or giving us the park, get it under the city control, and so we're throwing it out there as a concept.
No, 63rd.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we had put the feelers out there about a year or two ago on this site, and to just the budding property owners, and it wasn't received well. So. Yeah, I mean, it does flood. It's within a floodplain, so you can have like passive recreation areas, within floodplains. Certainly, when it does flood, there's not going to be too many people out there with their dogs, but it is still out there for an idea. Yeah, well, I mean, right now you can probably go out and look at it. I mean, after a flood, the water, it puddles, it gets wet out there, and then it goes away. So I mean, it's actively doing that now. I mean, it's nature, taking its course. When it gets wet, it gets soggy. So. Mm-hmm.
Almost unusable for several days at a time.
Right.
Or you take your dogs out there and they're 12 inches of mud, which my dogs hate. So.
Right.
Well, Curry could be a mess if it's on a hill and it's on
Yeah.
the bottom of Curry can be just as much of a mess.
All the dog parks
Yeah.
flood out.
Right.
And Waukesha.
Yeah, but dogs love it. Let's be real. Dogs love it. Okay. And that's what a hose is for.
See a rise in the mobile dog wash. She'll pull up right here, right? So, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yes. Sure.
Is there the possibility of extending that a little further north and a little further south then? Would that
Possible. Yeah. It's all possible.
would that be it? 'Cause, like, why are there just those 3 parcels shaded in? Is there?
We were trying to keep the distance from the homes, basically. Yeah, because when this was initially floated, and it wasn't even really a proposal, but a lot of the neighbors were concerned about people not cleaning up after their pets, and then when the rain does come, having all that feces washing into their yards and things like that. And there were some legitimate concerns. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
The EPA has, it was this dog park, there's a big dog park in Minnehaha and Minnesota, Minneapolis. They are concerned about E. coli has started to spread because of these dog parks.
Wash your hands. It's a legitimate concern. Yeah.
Fertilizer. I want to know how when you walk into a dog park, you let your dog go. How are you going to be able
Yeah.
Let's find a site first. Let's find a site first.
So yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of concerns, and I understand that. I mean, I get it. It makes sense, and those are all the things we've got to talk about to be successful.
So beautiful, so green, and you're gonna turn out with no grass, it's gonna look awful. And it's right off of the parkway, and there's no
Right.
parking here.
I'll go back to the beginning, we don't have a site picked yet.
Yeah.
So. There we go. Okay. Behind the police department, police department, 113th and Greenfield, and there's a large, roughly about a 7-acre area behind the police department right now, undeveloped. There's a plan out there for soccer field, you know, embracing the soccer players on the site, but then there's also room left over. There should be room left over for possibly some a dog exercise area. There is a swale that runs through here, and it is wetland area down further southeast. Perhaps 2 to 3 acres left over for a dog exercise area, though. It's in proximity to Nathan Hale High School, our athletic fields, the police department, obviously, and some other offices. There is multifamily housing right here, and then this is the Pick and Save, Kohl's, and Marshalls. All that good stuff is in here. So, but it's another possibility. Yes, sir.
Doesn't West Allis, West Milwaukee own that, the school district?
This is actually owned by this. It's on the same property as the police station, so it's actually city-owned. But this here, this is a school district, correct? Yeah. But yeah, the site we're looking at here is all under the control of the city. We'd have to talk to the school district. Obviously, it's a landlocked site. There's not really an easy way to get there right now. We'd have to talk to the school district about possibly parking on the Nathan Hale parking lot and having an access way over to this landmass. The city yards property on 116th and Morgan is one other thought. In speaking with our city engineering department, they were open to the idea of maybe carving out some area on this site, reorganizing things, shuffling things around a little bit. It's kind of an odd shape, long, narrow, L-shaped, but 1 to 2 acres of land. 116th Street is here, and this is it's about a 14 or 15 acre parcel of land in total. The DPW site is, and it's essentially it's not attached to the city of West Allis. It's like an island off our southwest coast of the city. But the parking would be definitely a question. 116th Street is, if you've been down that road, it's not very wide. So we'd be looking at, you'd have to create some kind of parking in that area. Or as another thought, perhaps widening the shoulder of 116th Street to accommodate street parking along 116th Street. Aside from that, I mean, there are quite a bit of dog walkers right now along, the Oak Leaf Trail in the city of Greenfield, county land.
Yeah, could you go
Yeah.
around and give us an idea of what's what around all the vacant parcels here?
Yeah, okay, so this is that one area that the county had looked at in years past. This is the city of West Allis, north of Morgan Avenue. And county parkland comes down from, National, Oklahoma being up here, following down the Root River Parkway. And then it turns into 116th Street here. And this is county land, parkway.
There's a lot of county land surrounding this.
Yeah, there is a substantial amount of county land. A lot of it, though, is wet. I mean, this is a wetland area here. There's some wetland up here. There's some wetland over here. Perhaps around this site here. But so but it is an area where there could be some cleanup of some of the scrub trees, along 116th Street, putting in fencing and, so throwing it out there for consideration.
And the site to the west?
The site west, this is a Morgan Oaks subdivision, city of Greenfield, yeah. So, and this is also city of Greenfield. So it's hard to tell the parcel lines, but it's basically a square. That's the city of West Allis right there. And then north of Morgan is the city of West Allis up here. This is another location on 99th and Lincoln. It's actually owned by the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. Overhead wires, WEPCO easement. The grass site, parking would be an issue. I mean, there is possibly street parking on, 100th Street here. But for an area of this size, I mean, if this full extent of an area was realized, I think you'd want to create some off-street parking. And the last is just a Irving School location north of Grant Street. This is Lincoln Avenue here, the expressway I-94 expressway here, the Lincoln Avenue exit, and then this is 102nd Street, and then you've got Irving School here. They've got a ball field and some play areas north of their school, and then north of that on the school land is another grassy area that doesn't have any programming on it right now. It's just open field. So that was the thought.